She posted a selfie with the caption, "Living my best life without restriction sparkles, while still living in my apartment." I liked the post, then removed my name from the lease that same day. Her next post was very different. "Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. You're so controlling, I can barely breathe around you." She said that to me on a Tuesday morning, while eating the breakfast I made for her, while wearing the oversized hoodie she stole from my closet 3 months ago and never gave back, while sitting in the apartment I had been paying for, entirely on my own, for the past 6 months. She said it so casually, like it was just a thing that was true, like she'd been rehearsing it, and finally found the courage to say it out loud. I remember standing at the kitchen counter with a spatula still in my hand. I didn't say anything for a long moment, not because I was stunned into silence, but because something shifted inside me, something quiet and clean, like a door closing very softly. I'm 29. Her name is Brooke, and we've been together for 2.5 years. We've been living together in my apartment in Denver for the last 14 months. That's really all the context you need right now. The rest of it will come. Let me back up to about 2 weeks before that Tuesday. We had gotten into an argument, a real one, not the bickering kind. The kind where voices don't raise, but the air in the room gets heavy and hard to breathe. It started because I had asked her something simple. I'd asked her what her plans were for paying her share of the utilities that month. It wasn't a surprise ask. We had an agreement. She covered utilities, electricity, water, internet, and I covered rent and groceries. That was the deal we'd struck when she moved in. Her job at the time paid decently. She was a content manager for a mid-sized lifestyle brand. The income wasn't massive, but utilities were manageable. Or at least, they were supposed to be. But over the past 4 months, she'd let that side of the deal quietly fall apart. She'd paid utilities late twice. She'd asked me to cover it just this once, 3 different times. And I had. Each time without making a scene. Each time telling myself it was a rough patch, and she'd get back on track. But that evening, the electricity bill was 3 weeks overdue. I had already gotten a warning notice from the provider. So I asked, politely, calmly. I said, "Hey, the electricity notice came in. Can we figure out who's handling that this week?" She put down her phone and looked at me like I had just accused her of something. "Can you not make everything about money?" she said. I blinked. "I'm not making it about money," I said. "I'm asking about a specific bill that's overdue." "You always do this," she said. "Every time I'm going through something, you bring up finances." I didn't know what she was going through. She hadn't told me she was going through anything. As far as I knew, she'd had a normal week. She'd been out with her friends 3 nights in a row. She'd bought 2 new outfits that I'd noticed hanging in the closet. She'd ordered food delivery every day that week because she said she wasn't in the mood to cook. She did not appear to be going through something. But I let it go. I said okay. I said I'd handle it this month. She nodded like I had finally done the right thing, picked her phone back up, and went back to scrolling. I paid the electricity bill that night. I also paid the water bill that was coming up, and the internet. Because somewhere between that conversation and opening my banking app, I did the math. I had been covering rent, $1,850 a month, every single month for 14 months. I had been buying groceries every week. I had been the one fixing things when they broke. I had been the one calling the landlord. I had been the one doing basically everything that kept that apartment running. And in the last 4 months, I had quietly taken on utilities too. Not because I offered, not because we renegotiated, but because she stopped, and I just kept going. The number I came up with that night sat in my stomach like something cold. I didn't say it out loud. I just closed the banking app and went to bed. Things were surface level fine after that. The kind of fine that isn't actually fine but functions like it. She was pleasant. I was pleasant. We ate dinner together most nights. We watched shows together. She laughed at things. I laughed at things. But there was something underneath all of it that I couldn't ignore anymore. It was like finding a small crack in a wall and then realizing it runs all the way to the foundation. I started noticing other things. Things I had probably been noticing for a while, but categorizing as not a big deal. She never asked how my day was. Not really. She'd ask the question the same way you ask someone if they want a receipt. Not because you care about the answer, but because it's the expected thing to do in that moment. When I talked about something at work, something I was stressed about or proud of, her eyes would drift after about 40 seconds. Not every time, but enough times that I noticed the pattern. When something was wrong with her, I was expected to stop everything, to sit with her, to ask the right questions, to be present patient, and understanding. And I was, because I cared about her. But when something was wrong with me, it was generally met with a brief acknowledgement and then a pivot back to her own world. I started wondering when that had become the default. I started wondering if it had always been that way and I just hadn't wanted to see it. A week before the Tuesday of the controlling comment, she told me she wanted to go to a music festival. It was out of state, about 6 hours away. 4 days, 3 nights. She had already talked to her friends about it. She had already picked out what she was going to wear. She showed me the lineup with genuine excitement. And I want to be clear, I was happy for her. I wasn't trying to stop her from going. I don't have a problem with her having a life, having friends, going to things. I never have. But the festival cost money. The tickets were $280 each. The hotel split between 4 people was still $150 for her share. Gas, food, incidentals, she estimated another $200. That's over $600 she was cheerfully planning to spend. While 3 overdue bills had been sitting unpaid in our apartment for the past several weeks. While she had asked me to cover it just this once, 3 separate times. I didn't say any of that. What I said was, that sounds fun. Are you going to be okay with the cost this month, given everything? That was it. That was the whole sentence. She looked at me for a second, and then she said, I'm so tired of you making me feel guilty for wanting to live my life. I didn't say anything. She went to the festival. I stayed home. I covered the bills. She posted constantly from the festival. Photos and videos all weekend. Her and her friends dancing. Her and her friends at the food vendors. Her with a cup of something colorful. Her laughing with her head thrown back in the way she laughed when she was having a genuinely great time. And she looked happy. She looked completely free. And I sat with that for a while. Because part of me was glad she was having fun. But another part of me, the part that had just paid her share of 3 utility bills, was sitting in our apartment noticing how quiet it was. She came home Sunday night sunburned and exhausted and happy. She hugged me. She said she missed me. She fell asleep within 20 minutes of being home. And things went back to the surface level fine. Then came Tuesday. I made eggs. I made toast. I made coffee exactly the way she likes it. Oat milk, 1 sugar, a tiny bit of vanilla extract she started adding a year ago and that I had started just doing automatically. She sat down. She looked at her phone. She ate. And then, without looking up, she said, You're so controlling, I can barely breathe around you. I stood there with the spatula. I said, Where is this coming from? She finally looked up. My friends think so too, she said. They've been saying it for a while. Your friends think I'm controlling? They see how you are with money, she said. How you always have something to say about what I spend. How you make me feel like I need to report to you. I set the spatula down. Very carefully. You and I have an agreement, I said. About how we split expenses. I've never once told you what to spend your money on. I've only ever asked about the bills that are part of our agreement. That's controlling, she said. She said it so simply. Like the logic was airtight. Like I was supposed to nod and accept that asking someone to pay a shared utility bill was a form of control. I looked at her. I looked at the coffee I had made. I looked at the toast. I looked at the hoodie she'd been wearing since October. And I said, very quietly, Okay. Not okay, you're right. Not okay. I'll do better. Just okay. She seemed satisfied with that. She went back to her phone. I finished cleaning up the kitchen. And then I called in late to work. I need to tell you something about myself. I'm not a reactive person. I don't yell. I don't explode. I don't send long emotional texts at 2 in the morning. When something hits me hard, I go quiet. I think. I walk. Sometimes for a long time. That Tuesday, I walked for almost 2 hours. Just around the neighborhood. Just letting everything settle. And what I kept coming back to wasn't the word controlling. It wasn't anger. It wasn't hurt exactly. It was something more specific than that. It was the image of her eating eggs I made and calling me controlling. It was the image of her wearing my hoodie and calling me controlling. It was the image of her living in my apartment, having her utilities covered, eating my groceries, sleeping in a bed I bought, and feeling suffocated. By me. Suffocated by me just existing in a space I had built and maintained almost entirely on my own. And what I realized on that walk was this. She didn't think of the apartment as mine. She didn't think of any of it as mine. She thought of it as ours. And not in the romantic sense of 2 people building a life together. In the sense that she had moved into a fully functioning situation and begun treating it like something she was entitled to without condition. The contributions, the stability, the groceries, the bills, the coffee with oat milk and vanilla. She had stopped seeing any of it as something I did. She just saw it as the environment she lived in. And somehow, the only time I registered to her at all was when I reminded her that I existed, that I was a person who contributed things, who had expectations, who had a name on a lease. And that, apparently, felt like restriction. I came back from the walk. She was on a video call with one of her friends. She waved at me when I walked in. I nodded. I went to my desk. I opened my laptop. I pulled up my phone and found the number for my landlord. His name is Owen. Good guy. Fair, practical, no nonsense. I'd been a reliable tenant for 3 years. First 2 years alone, then the 14 months with Brooke. I texted him. Hey Owen, do you have a few minutes to talk today? Want to ask about something on the lease? He called me back within the hour. I stepped outside to take the call. I kept it simple. I told him that my living situation was changing and I needed to understand the process of removing a secondary tenant from the lease. He walked me through it. It wasn't complicated. Brooke had been added to the lease 8 months after she moved in, her idea at the time, which I had agreed to because it felt like the right thing to do for a committed relationship. But in our state, with the type of lease we had, removing her was possible with proper notice and documentation. Owen said he'd email me the form. I said thank you. I went back inside. Brooke was off her call, watching something on TV. Everything okay? She asked, not really looking up. Yeah, I said. Just work stuff? I sat down at my desk. The form arrived in my email about 40 minutes later. I read it 3 times. Then I saved it to my desktop. I didn't fill it out yet. I needed to think. Here's what I want you to understand. I wasn't acting in anger. I wasn't trying to punish her. I wasn't making a dramatic power move. I was doing something that felt, for the first time in a long time, like an honest assessment of where things stood. Because here is the truth of it. I had spent 14 months prioritizing her comfort. Not in a resentful way. Not while keeping score. I did it because I loved her. Because I thought we were building something together. But somewhere in there, the building had become entirely one-sided. And the moment I showed up as someone with a perspective, with a limit, with an expectation of basic reciprocity, she had turned it into a personality flaw. She had taken that to her friends. Her friends had agreed. And now I was the controlling one. I thought about that word for a long time. Controlling. I thought about what it actually means. Controlling is telling someone they can't see their friends. Controlling is monitoring someone's phone. Controlling is using money as a weapon. Controlling is making someone feel small so that they need you. I had done none of those things. What I had done was pay for a life that we supposedly shared, and asked, twice, 3 times, very politely, for the one small contribution she had agreed to make. That's not controlling. That's just being a person with a name on a lease. 3 days passed. I didn't fill out the form. I watched. I paid attention in a way I hadn't been letting myself. She got her nails done. $85, she mentioned to her friend on the phone. She ordered a new skincare set that arrived in a box the size of a small suitcase. She made dinner exactly once, pasta from a box, and commented afterward that cooking was so much effort. She did not mention the bills. She did not ask about the electricity notice. She did not bring up the conversation from Tuesday. She acted like it had resolved itself. Like she had said the thing, and I had absorbed it, and the topic was now closed. And I understood something clearly then. She wasn't going to change. Not because she was incapable of it, but because she had no reason to. Everything she had was still there. The apartment was warm. The refrigerator was full. The coffee was made exactly right every morning. Why would anything change? On the 5th day after Tuesday, I filled out the form. I removed her name from the lease. I submitted it through Owen's management portal. Owen confirmed receipt within the hour. He said the process would move forward and that Brooke would receive an official notice within the standard timeline, about 2 weeks. I thanked him. I closed my laptop. I went to the kitchen. I made dinner. We ate together. She asked if I'd seen the show she'd been watching. I said no. She said I should try it. I said maybe. We went to bed. Here is where the social media part comes in. Because I know that's what you came here for. 2 days after I submitted the form, she posted. It was a photo of herself. She was standing in what I recognized as our living room. Our couch visible in the background. The art print she'd picked out on the wall. The lamp I'd bought at an estate sale 2 years ago glowing behind her. She looked beautiful. She really did. Glowing skin, great outfit, confident posture. She was smiling in a way that looked genuinely free. The caption read, "Living my best life without restrictions sparkles. Finally giving myself permission to just be. No apologies, no explanations. Just me." It had already gotten over 200 likes by the time I saw it. Her friends were commenting things like, "Queen," And this is the energy. And she's so that girl right now. I sat with my phone for a moment. I read the caption again. Living my best life without restrictions. In my apartment. On my couch. Under my lamp. I like the post. I want to be clear about why I did that. Not sarcastically. Not passive-aggressively. I genuinely liked the post. Because I understood something when I read it that she didn't yet know I understood. She wanted to live without restrictions. She was going to get exactly that. I want to tell you about a conversation I had with my friend Qley around this time. Qley and I have known each other since college. He's one of those people who says very little but means everything he says. I told him what was going on. Not all of it. Just the outline. The agreement. The bills. The controlling comment. The friends who'd apparently been agreeing with her assessment for a while. Qley was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "What does she actually contribute?" I thought about it honestly. She brought warmth to the space. That's real. She brought laughter. She brought company. She had been, at various points, genuinely loving. She decorated things in ways that made the apartment feel like a home rather than just a place. Emotionally, I said, sometimes, when she's present. Financially, she was covering utilities. Until she stopped. Does she cook? Occasionally. Clean. We both clean. So she's living in your apartment, Qley said. On your dime, mostly. And she called you controlling for asking about a bill. That's essentially the situation, I said. And now you've removed her from the lease. I have. Qley was quiet again. Then, has she asked you anything about the lease recently? Like, has she checked in on any of the apartment stuff? No, I said. Of course not, he said. That was the whole conversation. That was all Qley needed to say. I want to tell you about something that happened about a week before Brooke moved in. I don't think I fully processed it until now. She and I had been dating for about 6 months at that point. Things were going well. She was subletting a room from a friend across town, and that arrangement was ending. She brought up the idea of moving in together, and I said yes. I was happy to say yes. I wanted her there. But the week before she moved in, she had a conversation with me that I remember very clearly now. She sat me down. She said she wanted to be transparent about her finances. She said she'd had a hard few months, some unexpected expenses, a job transition, and she was a little behind. She said she wanted to be honest rather than hide it. I appreciated that. I thought it showed maturity. I told her we'd figure it out together and not to stress. What I didn't realize then, what I understand now, is that she was setting a precedent. She was establishing, before she ever moved in, that her financial situation was uncertain and that I should be understanding about it. And I was. Over and over and over again. The hard few months never really ended. There was always a reason. A transition. An unexpected thing. A rough patch. And I was always understanding. And she was always grateful. And then at some point, she stopped being grateful and started being resentful that I noticed at all. That's the shift I couldn't name for a long time. The gratitude curdled. And I think I know why. When you accept something from someone long enough, it starts to feel like less of a gift and more of a given. And once it feels like a given, the person providing it starts to feel like a fixture rather than a person. And fixtures don't get to have expectations. They just function. And when they don't function perfectly, they're inconvenient. That's what I had become. An inconvenient fixture. 10 days after I submitted the lease form, Brooke got the official notice. I wasn't home when it arrived. It came as a certified letter, and she had to sign for it. I was at work. I got a text from her at 11:42 in the morning. It said, "Can you call me?" I finished what I was working on. I stepped outside. I called her. She picked up on the first ring. "What is this letter?" she said. Her voice was different. Not angry yet. Confused. Genuinely confused. Like she had received something in a foreign language. "It's a notice about the lease," I said. "I can see that," she said. "It says I've been removed." "Yes." Silence. "Why?" she said. And there it was. The question. The one I had been expecting. "Because I own this lease," I said. "And I made a decision about how I want to move forward." "You made a decision," she repeated. "Yes." Without talking to me. "I asked you about the bills 3 times," I said. "I tried talking." That's not the same thing," she said, voice rising now. "You're taking me off the lease. That's huge. You don't just do that. You talk to me about it. You told me I was controlling," I said. "You told your friends I was controlling. You posted about living without restrictions. I'm giving you exactly that." Another silence. This one longer. Are you breaking up with me?" she asked. "I'm removing you from the lease," I said. "What that means for us, I think we need to talk about when I get home." She hung up. I want to tell you that the drive home was the longest 30 minutes I've experienced in a long time. Not because I was scared, not because I was second-guessing, but because I understood that what was about to happen was real. It was actually happening. And that's a strange thing to sit with. Even when you've been thinking about something for weeks. Even when you've walked through it in your head 100 times. When you're driving home to have a conversation that ends something, that changes everything. There's a weight to it that doesn't get lighter just because you're certain. She was sitting on the couch when I walked in. The certified letter was on the coffee table. She'd been crying, not actively, but her eyes were red and she'd clearly been at it for a while. I sat down across from her. I didn't make the speech I'd been rehearsing. I just waited. She spoke first. "I don't understand," she said. "Why didn't you tell me you were thinking about this?" "I did tell you," I said. "Not in exactly these words. But I told you every time I paid a bill that you agreed to cover. I told you every time I said, 'Are we okay on this?' And you told me I was being controlling." "I was frustrated," she said. "People say things when they're frustrated." "They do," I agreed. "And then other people make decisions based on what they heard." She shook her head. "This is extreme," she said. "Removing me from the lease without warning is extreme. Calling me controlling for asking about a utility bill is also a bit extreme," I said. "But here we are." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "I don't have anywhere to go. And I want to be honest about how that landed. Because it hit me. Not hard enough to change my mind. But it hit me. Because I wasn't without compassion. I wasn't trying to put her on the street." I said, "You have 2 weeks before the lease change is official. And I'd give you time beyond that to get settled. I'm not throwing you out tomorrow." "But you are throwing me out," she said. "I'm not renewing a situation that stopped working," I said. She looked at me. "When did it stop working?" she asked. "I think it started changing a long time ago," I said. "But I think I noticed it clearly the morning you told me I was controlling and then ate the breakfast I made." She flinched. I don't think she realized that specific moment had registered the way it did. "I was going through something," she said. "You're always going through something," I said. Not cruelly. Just honestly. Just the fact of it. She didn't have an answer to that. We talked for another 2 hours. Real talking. Not arguing. Just laying things out. She told me she felt like she could never live up to some standard I had. I asked her what standard she thought I had. She said, financial responsibility. I told her I didn't need her to be financially perfect. I needed her to hold her side of an agreement we had both made. There's a difference. She said she felt like I kept track of everything. I told her that's what happens when you're the one holding everything together. You notice the weight because you're the one carrying it. She cried a little more. I didn't comfort her the way I usually did. Not coldly, but differently. Not performing something I didn't fully feel. She said at one point, "Do you still love me?" I thought about that honestly. "I think I love who I thought we were becoming," I said. "I'm not sure that's the same thing." She looked out the window for a long moment. Then she said, "I didn't think you had it in you." I didn't ask what she meant. I think I understood. She had thought of me as someone who would absorb, who would take on, who would stay quiet and keep cooking breakfast and paying bills and never actually reach a point of enough. She had built her entire approach to our relationship on that assumption. And she was learning, right now, in real time, that she had been wrong. She called her sister that night. Her sister lives across the country, somewhere in the Carolinas. I could hear pieces of the conversation through the wall. "He just decided," she was saying. "He didn't even tell me he was thinking about it." And then, I know, but it still isn't fair." And then, softer, "I don't know what I did." That last part was the one that lingered. Because I had been wondering the same thing for months. I don't know what I did. What did I do? I paid for things. I cooked. I fixed things. I showed up. I was consistent. I was reliable. And I asked about a utility bill. Twice. 3 times. That's apparently what you did. Over the next few days, she moved through the apartment differently. Careful. Like the furniture had moved, and she was navigating around where she thought things used to be. She made dinner 2 nights in a row. Good dinners. Real effort. She cleaned the bathroom without being asked. She came up behind me once while I was working and just held on to me for a long moment without saying anything. And I understood what was happening. She was trying to show me something. What she could be. What the relationship could be if I gave it another chance. And I want to be honest with you about this part. Because this is the part that was hard. Not the confrontation. Not the lease removal. Not the long walk on Tuesday morning. This was the hard part. Watching her try. Too late. Trying too late. Because there's a version of her. This version. The one making dinner. The one holding on without words. That I had wanted for a long time. But she wasn't offering me that version because she wanted to. She was offering it because I had finally done something that scared her. And that's a different thing. That's a very, very different thing. About a week after the certified letter, her post changed. I don't know exactly when she posted it. I saw it in the afternoon. It was a low-light photo. Her, sitting in what looked like the corner of a coffee shop. No bright glow. No great outfit. Just her, looking real. Looking tired. The caption read, "Sometimes you don't know what you have until it's in the process of leaving. Sitting with a lot of feelings right now. Be gentle with the people who show up for you." That's all. That one had different comments. "You okay? Sending love." What happened? One of her friends, the same one who had commented Queen on the first post, wrote, "You deserve better anyway, babe." I noticed the first post was still up. Both posts were up at the same time. Living my best life without restrictions. Be gentle with the people who show up for you. Same week. Same person. Same apartment in the background of the first one. Let me tell you about the morning she left. She had found a place to stay. A friend of hers from work had a spare room available for a couple of months. It wasn't permanent, but it was something. She had been packing quietly for 3 days. Small things at first, then bigger things. Her bookshelf collection. Her kitchenware she'd brought when she moved in. The art print that had been hers originally. The lamp I bought at the estate sale was mine, so that stayed. On the morning she was actually leaving, 2 weeks and a few days after the certified letter, I helped her carry boxes to the car. Not because she asked, because it felt like the right thing to do. We made 3 trips. We didn't talk much. After the last box, she stood by the passenger door of her car. She had a friend coming to help drive. Another car, more stuff. She looked at me. "You could have just talked to me," she said. "I did," I said. She shook her head slowly. "Not like this. Not like what this turned into." "Maybe," I said. "But you weren't listening to the quieter version." She looked at the sidewalk. Then she looked at me again. "I was wrong," she said. "About the controlling thing." "I know that." I nodded. "That's good to know," I said. "That's all you're going to say? What would you like me to say?" She thought about it. Then, that maybe we could try again. Differently. I looked at her for a long moment. She was genuine. I could see it on her face. She meant it. She wanted a different version of us. And maybe she would have been capable of it. Maybe the Brooke who made dinner twice and cleaned the bathroom and held on without words would have been a real, sustained version of herself rather than a performance of change. I'll never know. Because what I knew for certain was this. She hadn't been that person for a very long time. And I had built a whole life around accommodating the person she actually was. And she had looked at everything I built and called it a cage. "I think," I said, very carefully, "that you deserve to figure out who you are without a set of conditions already in place." She started to say something. Then she stopped. She nodded once. She got in the car. She drove away. I stood on the sidewalk for a minute. Then I went back inside. The apartment was different that night. Not bad. Different. The walls had different sounds. My own footsteps were more distinct. The refrigerator hum was louder. I noticed the lamp at the estate sale, still where it always was. I noticed the couch. I noticed the small things she'd rearranged when she moved in that I had stopped noticing were rearranged. And I noticed something that surprised me. The absence of tension. That low-grade, ever-present tension that I had been carrying for months without fully naming it. The tension of waiting. Waiting for the next bill conversation. Waiting for the next, "You're controlling." Waiting for the next pivot away when I tried to say something real. It was gone. And what was underneath it wasn't loneliness. It was something quieter than that. Something that felt, if I'm honest, like the first real exhale in a very long time. She texted me about 3 weeks later, just to let me know she had found a more permanent place. An apartment, real this time, her own, split with one roommate. She said it was small, but she liked it. She said the roommate was clean and quiet. She said she'd been covering her share of everything. On time. Every month. I read that last part twice. I said, "I'm really glad. That's good to hear." She said, "I've been thinking a lot." I didn't respond to that part. Not because I was cold, but because I understood that whatever she'd been thinking, it was hers to sit with. It wasn't a conversation I needed to be part of anymore. She didn't push it. She sent a final message that said, "Take care of yourself." I wrote back, "You too." And that was it. Here's what I've been sitting with since all of this happened. I don't think Brooke is a villain. I want to say that clearly. I don't think she set out to take advantage of me. I don't think she woke up every morning calculating how much she could lean on without contributing. I think she just drifted into comfort, into assumption, into the version of herself that was easiest when someone around her was making everything possible. And I let her. For a long time, I let her. Because I thought that's what love looks like. Showing up, absorbing, keeping the lights on, literally. But somewhere in my own drifting, I had confused being a good partner with being invisible. I had confused love with logistics. I had made myself so consistently functional that I stopped being a person to her and started being infrastructure. And infrastructure doesn't get to have a name. It doesn't get to ask questions. It doesn't get to say, "This isn't working." Until one Tuesday morning, with a spatula in my hand, something shifted. Something quiet and clean, like a door closing very softly. And once that door closed, I found out what was on the other side. Turns out it was me. Still there. Still whole. Just waiting. I've had people ask me, when I've told pieces of this story, if I regret how I handled it. The Lease thing specifically. The not telling her. The like post. The quiet move instead of the confrontation. And I've thought about it honestly. Do I think I should have had a direct conversation first? Probably. There's a version of this where I sat her down before I submitted that form and said, "This isn't working, and here's why I've reached that conclusion." Maybe that conversation would have changed something. Maybe she would have heard it differently. Maybe. But I also know that I had that conversation. Smaller versions of it. Multiple times. And what I got back was, "You're controlling." What I got back was, "You always do this." What I got back was a post about living without restrictions. So, I made the call I made. And I can live with it. The apartment is mine again. Fully and quietly mine. I moved the lamp to a different corner, somewhere it makes more sense. I rearranged the bookshelf. I painted one wall a color I'd been wanting to try for over a year that she had vetoed because she didn't like dark tones. It looks good. It looks really good. I make coffee in the mornings. Just for me. No oat milk. No vanilla. I have no idea what I ever thought was complicated about making coffee. I go to work. I come home. The refrigerator has exactly what I need and nothing I don't. The electricity bill is paid. The water bill is paid. The internet is paid. On time. Every month. Turns out none of that was actually that hard. I don't know if I'll tell this story differently in 2 years. Maybe I'll look back and think I moved too fast. Maybe I'll look back and think I waited too long. Maybe both. But what I know right now, standing in this apartment under this lamp in this corner where I moved it, is that the person who made breakfast that Tuesday morning and stayed completely quiet while being called controlling, he deserved better than that. And the only one who was ever going to give him better was himself. So he did. She posted about living without restrictions. She was still living in my apartment when she wrote that. I liked the post. Then I made one quiet phone call. And the next thing she posted was a lot more honest. Because restriction, it turns out, isn't someone asking you to be responsible. Restriction is staying somewhere you stopped valuing a long time ago. I just helped her find the door. And then I kept the lamp.